2, 3, 4.
Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk. Hello, Richard Rottenberg. We are coming to you live from NASA Community College on 90.3 WHPC. We are also streaming on nccradio.org. This program is later archived on Spreaker.com. This program, believe it or not, is repeated Sundays at 11 p.m. So hi there, my name is, you got it right, my name is Eitan Kelshevsky. No, my name is Jeffrey Hirsch. No, let's try again. My name is Rabbi Perl. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Of course, this all depends on when you're listening or watching us. Oy Gewalt, how could I forget? You can watch us on Facebook Live at WHPC's page or my own at facebook.com, Anshel Pearl. So hello on the radio, hello online, and hello to the world. Guess what, my friends? I'm so happy to share with you. This weekend, at a very special award ceremony, this great station, WHPC, took home 4 huge national trophies from the Intercollegiate Broadcasting System. We actually won Best Foreign Language Program, the German Hit Parade with community volunteer Urigas. We also received an award for the best use of video in the radio studio, best promo series for the NASA Morning Madhouse promos, and, my friends, the best community college radio station in the nation. This is the 4th time this great station has won this award, I should say, 4th time in the last 6 years. And just by the way, my friends, don't tell anybody, but this program, Jewish Talk, also was nominated for the Best Community Volunteer Personality. Oy, Gewalt, listen, little do they know. So I want to say a special shout out to Sean Novak, our great station manager, and the assistant director, my favorite radio engineer, Kim Nadler, for making all this happen. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, where do we begin today as we say hello to everybody listening to us? Hello. If you can't see me, it's because you're on the radio. It's hard to communicate with you with my hands on the radio. But you know what? If you're listening, you're watching, you can see me wave. I'm waving to the right, to the left. You see, I'm kind of a balanced guy. I don't mind sometimes waving to the right, sometimes to the extreme right, sometimes to the extreme left, sometimes in the middle. Oh yeah, enough already. Let's begin here as we say good morning to Levana Cohen. Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to share with you how we look at the importance of giving credit when credit is due. I don't take credit, I just take cash. I'm just joking. Plagiarism is a major no-no in the academic world, as we all know recently. One can ruin a person's career and forever taint other accomplishments. In Torah as well, is quite clear in telling us that we are to credit received wisdom to those who share it with us, and that failing to do so is tantamount to stealing. But I'm going to share with you, does this apply in all cases? To probe the depths of this question, the Rebbe, Rabbi Schneerson, begins with a story from the Zohar. It says the following. There was a rabbi, Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Chia, were traveling together. When Rabbi Chia shared an exposition on the verse from Isaiah, impressed, Rabbi Yossi declared, this journey truly merited to benefit from this thought. So Rabbi Yossi now continues. He inquires of Rabbi Chia, from whom did you hear this great thought? Rabbi Chia responded that once he was walking along the way, and he heard Rabbi Hamnuna, the elder, teach this verse to another rabbi, Rabbi Acha. So if Rabbi Chia was aware that he had derived this teaching from another sage, why did he not make the correct attribution from the outset? After all, he was aware of the tradition recorded in the Ethics of the Fathers. Anyone who delivers a teaching in the name of the one who said it brings redemption to the world. And it actually applies very much with the upcoming holiday of Purim, where we read about this This is the source. Esther informed the king in the name of Mordecai. She had found out about this terrible plot, and she brought it to the attention of the king, mentioning its source, which was Mordecai. So in the Purim story, it comes to Mordecai's attention that some advisors were plotting to have the king killed, and Esther passes on the information in Mordecai's name. That's the source. This led, of course, to the king's acting in gratitude towards Mordecai, which became an important part in the salvation of the entire nation. So knowing this, surely Rabbi Chia should have acknowledged from the outset where this inspiring thought originated. As say good morning to Label Swenson, good morning to you, and to Stacy Hirsch Lambert, good morning to you too. So the Rebbe's father, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Schneerson, explains that in the case of the information that Esther passed on, it was directly passed to her by Mordecai. Mordecai told her. And therefore, it made it imperative that Esther give the appropriate attribution when informing the king, retracing the steps of how the information was shared. Not so in the case of Rabbi Chia. He merely overheard a Torah thought. As the idea had never been intentionally shared with him, he could not say that this information was given to him. It seems that Rabbi Yossi sensed this, which is why he asked him, "Where did you hear this?" and not, "Who told you this?" But there's a significant difficulty remaining in this story, as the rabbis also regarded giving correct attribution to one's sources actually a halachic imperative. According to the Medrash, anyone who fails to state a teaching in the name of the one who said it, the verse says of him, "Do not rob the poor on the account of being poor." Therefore, when a person hears something, he must always repeat it in the name of the one who said it. Jewish law rules that one who does not repeat a teaching in the name of the one who said it actually transgresses a prohibition. This seems to apply equally to overhearing teachings as well as to those that were intentionally transmitted. So since Rabbi Hamnuna was not necessarily aware that his teaching was overheard by Rabbi Yechia, it could be argued that the lack of attribution in this case could have been a mistake, a sin. So how could Rabbi Yechia fail to provide credit where credit was due? As we say hello to a person who requires no introduction, Babes Abramson. Thank you so much. So the Rebbe supplies a new perspective by drawing attention to something quite glaring. There are veritably hundreds of teachings in the ancient text that are never attributed to their original sources. How could this be? If everything has to have a source and you have to remember the name, how come we have hundreds and thousands of texts and teachings that don't have it sources? This is particularly striking in relation to Rabbi Eliezer the Great, who said about himself that he never taught a teaching that he had not heard from his own teacher. Yet, many of Rabbi Eliezer's teachings are not attributed. So this provides a turning point for a new understanding on this issue. The obligation to credit one's learning to one's teachers only applies if the person is holding on to the learning of another. In many cases, the knowledge becomes fully integrated into the mind of the one who studies it. It is no longer another person's idea that he has acquired, but an authentic part of his or her own mind. By sharing the teaching, he's no longer passing along someone else's idea, but instead giving of his own self. At that point, the idea is as much as his own as it is his teacher's. We see this from the way the Talmud permits a teacher to forgo his honor. By what right can the teacher forgo his honor as a Torah scholar, when the honor is not due to him, but to the Torah that does not belong to him? It's very much is his Torah, as it is written regarding the righteous, that his only desire is God's Torah, and his Torah that he delves in day and night. It's as if to say that the Torah starts out as God's Torah, but by virtue of toiling of the personality of this individual, it now becomes his or her Torah. This is a very important concept of what does it mean to know, to have knowledge of Torah. What's the purpose of knowing? The teaching shared by Rabbi Perl was one that he had devoted himself to with such intensity that it had become firmly part of his own repertoire, evidenced by how the inspired his teacher or his colleague, Rabbi Yossi, was from hearing it. And this is the main point, my friends. The point of Torah study, and I have many interactions with people. What do you think we study Torah for? To accumulate, to argue, to put someone else down, to think you know more than someone else? It's not simply to accumulate knowledge and to become better educated. The goal of learning is to absorb what we learn so deeply that we become a different person. It has enriched our very soul, and to the point that it can be truly called our own. We may not necessarily attribute to others, not for the lack of politeness, but because the learning has become a part of ourselves. And that is so blatant, my friends, when you talk to sometimes, you see they're only in there to rak lakante, to push you down. It's not part of their life, not part of their outlook. It's just being able to show that they know something more. That's not what we're talking about. We're not here to just simply pass on information that we gathered somewhere else, but giving it from our inner core. How do we know it comes from the inner core? If that teaching makes you a different person, you've transcended your own limitations. When we give the proper attributions, we do so in order to pay homage to the tradition, not because we don't feel attached to the idea, which is now etched in our mind. So with that in mind, I want to share with you a thought that we had in shul this weekend. You know, don't tell anybody, but I actually prepare myself on Shabbos morning to what I'd like to teach and share with our beautiful congregation. And I'd spent all night thinking about one point, but when I came to shul, Dr. Spitz asked me a question, and I knew he wasn't able to stay on later on, but what his question was something I was going to say at the Kiddush. So I turned it around, and what I was supposed to speak later, I spoke earlier. And this is something that I know Richard Rottenberg would appreciate, as well as Julianne Wallach and everybody else. And Peter Hirschhorn, Gaval, Peter, you got up so early today. I'm impressed. And that is, what is true leadership? We're talking about how much teaching makes a difference to yourself. I've come to the conclusion, my friends, that the definition of someone who is to be considered a leader, I'm not only talking about leader of a position and community, but a leader within oneself, if you have a balanced appreciation of where you are at and where other people are at. If someone only believes in what they believe in, to minus someone else, it's not working. Let me share with you the question first. It goes under the heading of, will the real leader please stand up? We all know, we read at great length yesterday about the sin of the golden calf. Man alive, this is one of the lowest points in our history. In addition to the idolatry, what was going on over there, you shouldn't know from it. There were those who were committing two other sins that are considered in Jewish law to be the most serious of offenses: adultery and murder. So there was idol worship, there was adultery, there was murder. In the Torah reading, it describes, on the next day, they arose early, offered up burnt offerings, brought peace offerings, and the people sat down to eat and to drink, and they got up to make merry. Rashi explains, what does it mean to make merry? Oy Gewalt. This is a connotation of some inappropriate immorality that was going on and bloodshed. So, my friends, it was Freilach. And the question that everybody asks is, hello, where was Jewish leadership at this time? How could it be in such a short period of time, standing at Mount Sinai, everything went on over there, together with Charlton Heston and Mel Brooks, and everybody's standing around there. How could all of this get out of hand? Where was Jewish leadership at the time? How come they were not able to stop the sinning before it got out of hand? You can't answer and say, oh, well, Moses was up on the mountain receiving the Torah from God. The Jews were without leaders. Hello, the Torah clearly describes that before Moses go up on the mountain, he appointed temporary leaders. Moses and Joshua, his servant, arose. They went up. Moses ascends to the top of the mountain. And to the elders, what did Moses say? Wait here until I return. And here is Aaron and Hur are with you. Whoever has a case, let him go to them. So Moses left behind two leaders. What's going on here? As Michael Sostik would say in French. Aaron, let's think about this. He didn't just leave two schleppers. Unbelievable credentials. Let's think about it. Aaron is an unbelievable leader. He, of course, we remember, he is Moses' older brother. He's his right-hand man throughout the entire process of Exodus from Egypt. He was later appointed the high priest. He received frequent prophecies from God. So, man alive, Moses left behind an amazing brother as a leader. Hello, what happened? The other gentleman, Hur, was also a very high-ranking and well-known personality. He was Moses' nephew. He was the son of the older sister, Miriam. Who do you think this Hur's father was? Was the famous Kalev ben Yefuneh, the very righteous and courageous man who stood up to the 10 sinful spies and argued for the goodness of the land of Israel. Remember, this same Hur that I'm talking about had already been an active leader during the war with Amalek. He was the one, when Moses' hands were heavy, took a stone and placed it under him. He sat down, and it was Aaron and Hur who supported Moses' hands, one from this side and one from the other side. So he was a man of leadership. So here we have Aaron and Hur, both very righteous and respected personalities, deserving and capable of leading the people. How is it that despite their presence and leadership, everybody managed to carry out such a public and grand rebellion against God? And I could tell that everybody listening and watching are wiping their eyes, because they're saying, thank God, Rabbi, you're speaking about it. I couldn't sleep all night thinking about this. Now, Dr. Kolshevsky points out a very interesting thing. What about the 70 sages? And we all know what happened over there. They remained in lower parts of the mountain itself. They didn't go all the way to the top. But clearly, Aaron and Hur were left behind to take care of business. So what happened? What happened over here? My friends, what I'm about to share with you, I hope you're sitting down. Because if you're standing, you're going to fall down when you hear this. Because when you hear what I'm about to say, you will appreciate why around the world leadership is in dread, is going nowhere. Because there is no balance anymore. Let me share with you. Let's examine the reactions of Hur and Aaron to the golden calf. When you look at someone and you see how they react, you know where they're coming from. Hur, right? He is the son of Miriam. Rashi helps appreciate how he went about trying to stop the problem. Aaron saw many things. He sees his sister's son Hur, and he's going around reproving everybody. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. How dare you do this? Guess what? Everybody got bent out of shape, and they assassinated him. They murdered Hur. Hello? It is clear that Hur did make a great attempt to stop the sinning. He realized he was a leader. It's up to him to respond. And he did this, though, here he goes, my friends, with a serious rebuke and condemnation. But here's the problem. His response was so harsh, and that in their frenzy, everybody did the unthinkable and actually killed him. Now you would think Hur's response seems natural under the circumstances, and his personal sacrifice was very noble. He did whatever he could to stop the sinning. Sadly, death silenced him. But my friends, it was not enough. You can see, he screamed and he shouted and he shouted, and fire and brimstone garnished. The sinning continued. It only seemed to intensify. Let's take a look now at Aaron. His response was the exact opposite than Hur's. He was, we all know, he was the man of a personality of peacefulness, bringing peace between husband and wife, between fighting personalities. He was a loving person. He wasn't this confrontational kind of person that Hur was. He used diplomacy. He used appeasement. And he pretended to go along with the plan, so to speak. He tried to stall things, as we know. Bring you your gold, bring you, all the jewelry. He figured he'll figure out a plan to stall things until Moses would return. In the end, he simply ran out of time, and everybody did exactly what they did with Aaron. Nothing happened. Nothing stopped him. So this is the question. What was it about Moses' leadership that outdid even Aaron and Hur that they could not replicate? What was the plan of Moses by leaving these two individuals? You see, we first need to understand what it takes to be an ultimate ideal leader. Whatever group, whatever country, state, whatever, anything. What is the definition of a leader? And that is, an ultimate leader must embody two opposite dynamics. On the one hand, that leader must care deeply for his or her people, love them, and have only their best interest in mind. And he has to be able to find a way to communicate that love, with devotion, with care, so that the people know that their leader feels this way about them. On the other hand, a leader needs to display strength and boldness. He must communicate to his people what is right and what is wrong, and stand firmly for what is true and correct. Think about this. Aaron and Hur, appointed by Moses, each excelled in one of those qualities. Hur, like his father Kalev, was this bold, courageous leader who stood strongly for what was right. The problem was, the people didn't feel his love and devotion. He came across as being too critical and too harsh. And when a person comes across that way, we actually produce the opposite effect of what we're trying to achieve. With Aaron, people felt understood. This was a man of Ashrei. This was a man who loved and cared. And they felt that he related to them as well for their needs. The problem was that he was too kind and peace-loving. And the people took advantage of that, as we all know. People are nice and kind, and people take advantage of you. It is perhaps for this reason that Moses appointed both of them to lead together. One on their own wasn't enough. He figured he'd have two. One is a toughie, and one is a loving kind of person. He knew of their individual strengths and realized that it would take the combination of both to provide solid leadership. If Hur and Aaron would have tempered each other's reactions and responded as one, maybe they could have stopped it. Moses, on the other hand, was the ultimate leader who possessed both of these opposite qualities within himself. He was first and foremost a loving and caring leader. He was the one who came to the defense of all of us in Egypt, which almost cost him his life, as we all know, when he went out there and he took care of business. He was a shepherd who ran after one stray sheep and returned it lovingly to its flock. He was the judge who sat from morning until evening, listening and advising all those who came before him with their problems and their issues. He was the leader who came to the defense of his people time and time again and begging God to forgive them. But at the same time, he was strong and he was fearless. He stood up to Pharaoh, the ruler of the most powerful empire of the world at that time. He knew how to take a stand and was never intimidated by the masses. Nothing encapsulates this more than his reaction to this very issue that we're talking today of the golden calf. He seemed to know just what to do at the moment when he descended from the mountain. And he put a stop to the sinning without facing any opposition, right? Despite all that was going on over there, the whole Macarena and everybody's dancing around, when Moses came down, baby, it all stopped. Why? Why, my friends? What did he do, in fact? What did he do? He smashed those luchos. He smashed the tablets. He came down with 3, dropped 1. Oh, no joking, today's a serious. It was this one bold and brilliant move that finally put an end to all of the nonsense. What was so brilliant and significant about this one act of smashing those tablets? It actually brought forward a double message. It was a paradox. And that's what made it so powerful. On the one hand, it was an act of harshness and condemnation. It sent a very strong and clear message. What was going on was totally unacceptable. It said, because of this sin, you don't deserve to have God's most precious gift, the Torah. But on the other hand, my friends, it was an act of motivated and infused by a pure love and care for his people. It communicated to the people how Moses was their defender and was looking out to protect them. As Rashi explains, what was the motivation to Moses smashing the tablets? This can be compared to a king who went abroad and left his betrothed with maidservants. Because of the immoral behavior of the maidservants, she acquired a bad reputation. Her bridesman, the person appointed to defend the bride should any problems arose, and tears up the marriage contract. And he said, if the king decides to kill her, I will say to him, hey, she's not your wife. So Moses broke those tablets to save. It was an act of love done purely for the benefit of his people. Basically, he was ripping up the contract, and they were able to feel that love at that time. So what was so brilliant and significant about this one act? It was this potent combination. Hello, I'm talking about combination of being able to bring together, to be a personality both of strength and love. That's what made Moses stand out to be such a dynamic and successful leader. And more on a personal note, we all find ourselves in positions of leadership, whether in our communities, in our schools, or in our families. There will be times when we will be faced with difficult situations, and we will have to react and show leadership. Let us learn from Moses how best to do this. Take a strong hand and don't show any weakness. Don't put somebody else down. Face it, be open, be honest with yourself, but at the same time, let the love shine through. Then others will accept what you have to say because they see it's the right, and they know that you only want the best for them. Let me say hello to everybody else joining us here, and those on the radio. You know, you tend to forget that there are amazing thousands and thousands of people listening here, and so to all of you out there, I'm waving my hands to the right, to the left. I'm trying to be balanced when I wave. Let's continue, my friends. So you think you're the first guy out there looking for God? People have been searching for spirituality, exploring it, and exploring the metaphysical, and generally searching for truth for millennia. Even the greatest prophet of them, Moses himself, as we're discussing today, was preoccupied with seeking the divine. We all know Moses wanted to see God in all of his glory. As we say hello to Joseph Kavanaugh, thank you. What was Moses? What do we read about? In the 33rd chapter of Exodus, Hareini noes kavidecha, please show me your glory. And the commentators explain that this means that he wanted it all. He wanted the ultimate revelation. Others see it as a quest for understanding the infinite ways of God, like why the righteous seem to be perennial sufferers and the wicked seem to be laughing all the way to the bank. Whatever the meaning, the Almighty places limits on Moses' understanding. He says, hello, you will see my back. I'm going to show you, but it's going to be my back. But my face you may not see. Finite earthlings like ourselves, or even a Moses, can only perceive so much and no more. The face of God, the ultimate full picture, is beyond of our human understanding. A youngster was being given his lesson, and he wanted to know, where is God? And the answer he was given was, God is everywhere. And the child said, that's the problem. I want a God who is somewhere. Everywhere is abstract, theoretical, rather intangible. Somewhere, on the other hand, is more defined, more substantial, more real. Yes, Judaism definitely believes that God is everywhere. Right? We know the famous song, Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is truly everywhere. I feel like I'm back in the matzah factory again. So surely Judaism definitely believes God is everywhere. But even more important is the somewhere where God can be found. You know, in Judaism we find a clearly developed infrastructure of life. There's a list of behaviors that are considered godly, and another list that may seem to be a lot more attractive, but are deemed to be ungodly. We know what God expects of us and what he does not. It isn't left to what feels good or bad to us in our own highly personal and very subjective mindsets. There are no objective rules of right and wrong. Morality and ethics are the province of God, and therefore, hope you're sitting down now, my friends, therefore are non-negotiable. Oh, we can talk about it and debate the issues all day long, but ultimately, our moral code is divine and absolute. I was once asked regarding a certain person whether he was a religious person. I remembered how that question was a moment of personal insight to me. From the perspective of the questioner, the answer was definitely yes. The person he was asking me about was a believer. He came to the synagogue faithfully every week, and he did charity work, the things that qualify a person to be called religious in the commonly accepted sense of the term. But in Judaism, the term religious carries a different connotation, or different connotations. The most obvious one, when we talk about a person of religious, is based on their Sabbath observance. Do they adhere to a kosher diet? The nitty-gritty do's and don'ts which the Torah instructs us. Faith in general, attending synagogue and helping out is all very nice, but it can still be somewhat, my friends, superficial. They are in the everywhere category. The Sabbath and other things like that is somewhere more in the somewhere, not just some everywhere, but somewhere department. It is clearly defined and absolute. It goes beyond the surface level feel-good stuff. You see, as ourselves, we require a more precise definition of religious. Practicalities, not platitudes. Action, more than attitudes, are the order of the day. God must be somewhere, not just everywhere. In the final analysis, when we connect to God by doing his will, we experience the greatest revelations. So, let's continue this idea. How is it Jewish people who had just weeks earlier personally experienced the revelation at Mount Sinai, the Ten Commandments, how could they justify their demand now for this idolatrous golden calf, as we've been discussing? As we say hello to Jay Mostel, all the way from Florida. Amazing. And hello to Laura May from Hollywood, Florida. Thank you so much, Laura. Well, on the face of it, it did seem as if it might have been a genuine expression of a need for leadership. What was their argument? Make for us gods who would lead us. Because the man Moses, who took us out of Egypt, is not there anymore. Moses was up on the mountain. He appeared to be late in returning, and they feared he wasn't coming back. So the people's demand for a visible, tangible leader to replace Moses appears to be reasonable. Arguably, it seems to be a sincere call for religious guidance and for a means of better identifying with one God. But where did it end? Not only in blatant idolatry, but also in adultery and even murder, as we discussed. So what went on over here? Right? As we mentioned, it led to all kinds of depraved merrymaking, included wild orgies and immorality, the killing of Hur, the son of Miriam, who tried to stop them. Here we find a profound message, as relevant today as in the days of old. It sometimes occurs that people make demands cloaked in piety or religious fervor. But beneath the surface lies really a selfish desire and, sadly, a sinister motivation. Often, people ask for God. What they really want is sin. Where was God during the Holocaust? This most disturbing question may be asked in a variety of ways. It could be out of a genuine desire to understand the most challenging philosophical issue of the day. On the other hand, it might also be asked almost flippantly as a convenient excuse for one's own religious inadequacies. A good test of where the question is coming from is this. If I was to give you a watertight answer for the question of God and the Holocaust, assuming I had one, would you begin living a godly life? Would you start putting on tefillin every day? Would you be in the synagogue tomorrow morning? If not, then the fact that you don't do so now cannot be attributed to your having a gripe with God. Either, perhaps you weren't raised with that important tradition, or you aren't sure how to do it, or perhaps you just couldn't be bothered and are using the Holocaust as a convenient rationalization. Do you know how expensive it is to keep kosher? We often hear. Again, this may be a passionate cry of religious zeal, or perhaps a real concern to make kosher food more accessible. Unfortunately, it might also be a cheap excuse for someone who has no intention of keeping kosher at any price. Let's be honest, my friends. Why blame our own inadequacies on a mysteriously inexplicable God or on a Judaism that we find fault with? Why say that we're looking for God when we're really looking for the path of least resistance? Let us not abuse that which is holy for the purpose of self-justification. Even if we are not prepared to live this holy life, at least let's be honest. Let's be honest. Which brings me now to a broader term. Many times over the years, people have asked me and say, look at this. I see these religious people. They shackle and they put on tefillin, and in business they're full of it. What's going on over here? Well, we all remember Moses comes down from the Sinai finally after 40 days and proclaims the Ten Commandments. Let's think about it. In his hands were two tablets of stone. And the Rashi explains that the distinctive Hebrew spelling of tablets comments they were both of the equal proportions. Literally, they were same height, width, depth, and the letters covered over equally. Because why are there these two tablets? Why couldn't there be one tablet? There are two common attitudes towards religion, neither representing the outlook of Torah. If the real religion concerns itself with the abstractions like the essence of God and the nature of evil, it thrives in the rarefield atmosphere of a seminar of theology and philosophy. And man is little involved in such a process. The mundane world of business, for example, has little place in this religion and faces neither challenges nor guidance from its conclusions. So basically, the two tablets represent two worlds that on the surface we may treat as separate. Two separate worlds. There's the world of the philosopher on the one side and the world of the businessman, and they operate independently. For others, religion is a code of etiquette, a kind of a set of maxims of how to get along with the people and be a nice guy. Be honest, give charity, don't kill. They represent religion. This religion, even in its finer forms, exists primarily in terms of men. I decide to be a nice guy. I decide to be honest. I don't kill anybody, God forbid. God doesn't need to be part of the picture. So basically, the two tablets represent something very integral. Again, the word balance. Here are two opposing views of religion. One looks at God and disdains the materialistic world. It's all about God. Only about my relationship with God. The other is so concerned with man and society that it forgets about God. Let's take a look and appreciate what the 10 Commandments. They were 10 commandments, and they weren't suggestions. They were commandments. The first of the 5 is I am the Lord, which is a positive statement of God and providence. The prohibition of idolatry, taking God's name in vain. The Sabbath, honoring parents. There seems to be a pattern. The stress on man's relations with God. That's first 1 through 5. But the second, on the second tablet, concerns murder, robbery, adultery, false witnesses, covetousness. All of these affect man-to-man relationships. Here we come and share and realize they're both equal. One cannot have a deep, connecting relationship to God if you're full of it between man to man. And being the nicest, kindest person between man to man and have no relationship with God is also missing. They were both given 1 to 5, 6 to 10, both equal. A person has to be good to God and good to man, both. Otherwise, is a halber mensch. They all work together. The honesty of the scales, the tefillin, paying employees promptly, all the laws that we're discussing, because they're all one. All are equally important. I've discussed such heavy-duty stuff. I got to now get a little lighter, my friends. What the secret of the Hamantash is. And this is something that Davida Zellickson has been worried about together with everybody else. What is the secret of the Hamantash? As we all know, in a couple of weeks or so will be the great holiday of Purim. Hamantashen are a triangular pastry filled with jam, other fillings. As we would say, the Hamantashen is full of it, which are traditionally eaten on Purim. Why is that? I've heard that they are the same shape as Haman's hat. But Haman was the man who wanted to wipe us out. Why would we immortalize him by eating cookies that bear his name, Hamantashen? Good question. You know, this may be a case of mistaken identity. These Purim cakes were originally called Montashen, which means poppy seed pockets. Montashen. Today, most Hamantashen are filled with jam, but poppy seeds used to be the more popular filling. So it was a short linguistic jump from Montashen to Hamantashen. If you come from Connecticut, you would never make such a mistake. So it was a short linguistic jump from Montashen to Hamantashen, as people assumed there was a connection between the food eaten on Purim and the villain of the Purim story. The real reason for eating Hamantashen is that they symbolize the very nature of the Purim miracle. If you read the story of Purim, you notice that it was a string of seemingly coincidences that saved the Jewish people from annihilation. There was no open miracles, no sea split, no plagues, just some twists and turns of the history that, when viewed as separate events, seem like natural. Only at the end of the story, was it revealed that there really was a miracle going on all along. We can find food, so to speak. Jews can find a food to tell a story. In this case, it's the hamantash. The outside of the hamantash is just plain dough. The true flavor is concealed inside. That's basically what a hamantash is. Beyond the very ordinary veneer is the heart of the hamantash that's bursting with sweetness. Our lives are very much the same. At times, it seems that we are being pushed and pulled by accidental forces. Things happen to us that seem haphazard and random. There seems to be no system in place, no direction to this cold and harsh universe. This is not true. There is a system, my friends. It's hidden. Below the surface, there is a sweet hand and a warm heart that directs this great world. Rarely do we get to see this hand. Purim is one day when it was revealed, when a crack opened in the outer shell of nature and we glimpsed what lies behind. Purim reminds us that all of those coincidences are no coincidences, and nothing is random. Remember, all of us are still in the middle of our story. So sometimes when we're in the middle of our story, it's hard to see the full picture. But in the end, we will see that it's all one life for all of us is one big hamantash. Allow me now to share something which has been on my mind for quite a while as I say hello to Sharon Jacobs and to Jeannie Marie and to everybody joining us today. Thank you so much for everybody. We are now in the month of Adar. In the Jewish tradition, this month, we actually have 2 months of Adar. These months, we're instructed to be joyous. But let's be honest. Who's in the mood? With war raging in Israel and shameless anti-Semitism all over the world, the founder of Chabad, as he was about to pass away, he turned to his grandson, who ultimately became his successor, and said, "Your inner state of mind affects reality. Do not sing songs with tunes of depression. The world is like a mirror. When you reflect an image of sadness and dread, that is what comes back to you. The divine energy mirrors your inner reality. Our perception of reality is expressed through our emotional state. One of the toughest things that I find is someone who walks around all day with a long face. A long face, always negative, because it only brings out more negativity. Our perception of reality is dependent on our emotional state. If a person adopts a joyous attitude to everything, that everything happens to us is the key to having God's miraculous blessings rain down upon us. When we recall that wherever we are, and whatever faces us, and we remind ourselves that we're not in it alone, because of the Master of the universe is with us by our side, at all times, we dance with joy, knowing that all will be well. Hashem has a plan. It's a one big hamantash. God knows what He's doing. He's got this, even if we have no clue of what He's thinking. That is why, typically, Hasidim, Chabadniks are known as, in the olden days, were called the Freilacha. Why? Hasidim, you always think of, you see a picture of Hasidim, they're usually dancing and saying L'chaim. They're happy, no matter what. The Rebbe would always encourage joyous singing and dancing at the big fabrengens, the public gatherings, because this attitude gives the person the latitude to reach one's magnitude, the depth of who we are. The highlight of the month of Adar coming up is the joyous festival of Purim. During this holiday, we celebrate the victory under the leadership of Queen Esther and Mordechai. This was a victory over the Persian anti-Semite Haman 2,200 years ago. Esther had the providential good fortune of being chosen as a queen, a position that allowed her to solicit her husband, King Ahasuerus, for the benefit of her people. In a very carefully choreographed plan, Esther invites her husband, the king, together with Haman, to a private feast for just the three of them. But curiously, the queen declines to voice her appeal to the king to eliminate Haman at the feast. What does she do? She requests that they regroup for a second feast the very next day. Our sages explain that the reason for Esther's decision was to delay her appeal. Her idea was to elevate Haman's emotional state at the first feast. Having realized that he was the only civilian chosen to dine with the king and the queen, he was filled with joy. It made him feel like $1 million. His happiness rendered him invincible, notwithstanding his nefarious personality. It was only at the second feast, when Haman's joy had significantly abated, that Esther was ready to successfully solicit the king to be able to destroy her nation's nemesis. It's no coincidence that the Torah advises us to schedule all of our precarious appointments during this month of Adar, whether it's surgeries, court hearings, closings, job interviews that happen in Adar have a far higher success rate. Far from being some sort of superficial superstition related to the timing, the increased joy that we choose to adopt at this time is the real source of the blessing that we are sure to experience as a result. Trach gut wird sein gut. Think good, be happy, put yourself into that mind brings that response as well. When we see a child crying, we instinctively ask, what's wrong? Yet when it comes to an adult, the exact opposite is true. When we see an adult grinning from ear to ear, we ask, hey, what's wrong with you? You're high? What are you doing? It's time for us to reclaim our happy inner child. We were born with a bias towards happiness. But we've lost our way as we matured and we went into this world filled with falsehood. We become fachaded. The Torah illuminates our way to unapologetically choose to be happy, with the full awareness that this is the key to securing God's blessings of health, success, and prosperity upon all of us. So, as we face the seemingly impossible situation in Israel, we mustn't get stuck like a deer in the headlights. Let's remember to look up and recall the all-powerful presence of God Almighty, who has what it takes to solve our problems. Realize that it's only impossible from our perspective. But Hashem, the Almighty God, has His own way of dealing with things. Look at our history as a proof to this. The fact that we are still here defies rhyme and reason. So often we think that we are the authors of our own book. But Hashem has a much better ending in mind. So in this special month in the Jewish calendar, let us choose joy. Let us choose the joy to help free the hostages, happiness to heal the injured, positivity to win the war as we confidently march to the ultimate reward, the era of the global peace and higher consciousness with the arrival of the much anticipated coming of Mashiach. My friends, we can all do this. As we say hello to everybody again joining us now, we all have the ability to make a difference in this world. It's only up to ourselves. What we put in is what you take out. I will share you this concluding little story. It's a favorite one of mine. A rabbi and his son They go around giving speeches, going around from synagogue to temple to synagogues, and they don't really charge for their services. At one particular place, the synagogue was the top of a hill. It was raining, it was pouring, it was snowing. It took them a long time to get up there. But they drudged through it, and as they came into the shul lobby, in appreciation, the father says, you know what? Let's put some money into, some coins into the pushka, into the charity box. In appreciation for making us successful. So they give their speech, and the shul is so impressed with him and the effort they made to come to schlep there. They decide, this time we're going to make an exception. We're going to pay him for his efforts. And they thought about it. What should they give him? How much should they give them? And they decided, you know what? Let's give him the entire process, all the money inside the charity box. They open up the charity box, and there's the quarter. The quarter. So the son says to the father, what can we learn from all of this? And he said very simply, what you put in is what you take out, my friends. We all know in life, we want results. We must make the effort, and we make the effort with joy and happiness. The results will be the same. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week. Looking forward. Safe, good news, good health to everybody. As we would say in French, sei gesund.